She thought it was just another boring night at the gate. Then an admiral handed her an envelope that would change everything. Most people think military life is all about combat and heroics, but sometimes the most important battles happen at a lonely checkpoint, under flickering lights when nobody's watching. Tonight, you're going to hear the true story of Petty Officer Sarah Chen, a gate guard who everyone ignored, until the moment she proved that real leadership doesn't need rank or ribbons. It just needs courage and the willingness to do what's right when it matters most. This is a story about duty, deception, and one woman who refused to let anything slip past her watch. Let's begin. The night shift at Gate 7 was the kind of assignment that tested patience more than courage. Most nights, nothing happened, and that was exactly the point. Petty Officer Sarah Chen stood under the harsh glow of sodium lights, her breath forming small clouds in the December air. The thermos at her feet had gone cold an hour ago, but she hadn't bothered refilling it. Staying alert meant staying slightly uncomfortable. The outer checkpoint sat a full mile from the main base entrance, a lonely outpost where 18-wheelers rumbled through at odd hours and contractors flashed badges without making eye contact. It was the kind of place where time moved in slow motion, measured by the crackle of radio static and the distant hum of jet engines warming up on the flight line. It was December 14th, a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday. Cold, quiet, and unremarkable. Chen had been assigned to Gate 7 for 8 months now. 8 months of checking IDs, logging vehicle numbers, and waving trucks through. 8 months of being invisible. Her uniform told its own story. The cuffs were worn shiny from repetitive motions. Her boots had walked this same concrete so many times she could navigate it blindfolded. No ribbons decorated her chest. No badges announced achievements. Just her name tape, slightly faded, and the quiet pride of someone who showed up and did the job right. Every single time. At 1900 hours, the evening shift change brought the usual faces. Corporal Jenkins, a Marine with a talent for terrible jokes, grinned as he prepared to clock out. Another thrilling night of watching paint dry. Chen. She allowed herself a small smile. Someone's got to make sure the paint stays where it belongs. Jenkins laughed and headed toward his truck. Don't let the excitement kill you out here. The outer checkpoint sat a full mile from the main base entrance, a lonely outpost where 18-wheelers rumbled through at odd hours and contractors flashed badges without making eye contact. It was the kind of place where time moved in slow motion, measured by the crackle of radio static and the distant hum of jet engines warming up on the flight line. It was December 14th, a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday. Cold, quiet, and unremarkable. Chen had been assigned to Gate 7 for 8 months now. 8 months of checking IDs, logging vehicle numbers, and waving trucks through. 8 months of being invisible. Her uniform told its own story. The cuffs were worn shiny from repetitive motions. Her boots had walked this same concrete so many times she could navigate it blindfolded. No ribbons decorated her chest. No badges announced achievements. Just her name tape, slightly faded, and the quiet pride of someone who showed up and did the job right. Every single time. At 1900 hours, the evening shift change brought the usual faces. Corporal Jenkins, a Marine with a talent for terrible jokes, grinned as he prepared to clock out. Another thrilling night of watching paint dry. Chen. She allowed herself a small smile. Someone's got to make sure the paint stays where it belongs. Jenkins laughed and headed toward his truck. Don't let the excitement kill you out here. By 2100 hours, the base had settled into its nighttime rhythm. The jokes faded, the chatter died down, and Chen began the real work. The work of watching, waiting, and noticing details that most people missed. A civilian contractor in a warm sedan rolled up, offering her coffee and a smile that lingered just a bit too long. She declined politely, keeping her focus on the badge he held out. The hologram caught the light correctly. The expiration date was valid. She logged his information and waved him through. 20 minutes later, a supply convoy from the inland depot arrived. 3 trucks running late and looking road-worn. The lead driver seemed irritated, brushing through his explanation about traffic delays. Chen took the paperwork and scanned it carefully. Something felt off. The authorization stamp looked correct at first glance, but the ink was too light, like it had been photocopied instead of stamped directly. The vehicle manifest listed standard networking equipment, but the weight distribution on the rear axle seemed heavier than it should be for server racks and cable spools. Sir, I need you to pull into secondary inspection, Chen said, her tone professional but firm. The driver's irritation flared into anger. Are you serious? We've been on the road for 6 hours. Everything's in order. Secondary inspection. she repeated, pointing toward the holding area. It's just procedure. He muttered something under his breath about power-tripping guards but complied, steering his convoy toward the inspection lane. Up in the Overwatch Tower, Marine Corporal Davis had been watching the exchange. He caught Chen's eye and tapped two fingers against his helmet. Their signal. He'd seen it too. Something wasn't right. She keyed her radio. Overwatch. Convoy Echo is staged at secondary. Keep eyes on them. Copy that, Davis replied. We got M. Chen returned to her post at the main gate, processing the steady stream of evening traffic. A Navy Lieutenant Commander, fresh from an officer's dinner, pulled up in his personal vehicle. He held out his ID with the impatient air of someone who believed his rank meant he shouldn't have to wait. She examined his credentials with deliberate care, taking exactly as long as procedure required. He huffed impatiently. She remained calm, professional, unmoved by his irritation. When she finally waved him through, he sped off without a word of thanks. Most people didn't look twice at her. To the hundreds of drivers who passed through each week, she was just part of the machinery. Invisible, forgettable, unimportant. She preferred it that way. The best security was the kind nobody noticed until something went wrong. But tonight, everything was about to change. At 23:15 hours, headlights appeared in the distance. These weren't the harsh, high beams of a commercial truck. They weren't the standard military-issue lights of a Humvee. These were different, smooth, expensive. The kind of xenon bulbs that came on vehicles where every detail had been carefully considered. Chen's instincts kicked in immediately. Her posture straightened. Her hand moved unconsciously toward her sidearm, not drawing it, just confirming its presence. The black staff car rolled forward with mechanical precision, stopping exactly at the yellow line painted across the road. Not an inch over, not an inch short. Perfect. The engine continued its quiet purr, the sound of German engineering and regular maintenance. Chen could hear her own heartbeat in the sudden silence. The driver's door opened first. A young ensign stepped out, his uniform immaculate, his movements crisp and practiced. He circled around to the rear passenger door and opened it with ceremonial precision. Vice Admiral Richard Keller emerged into the cold night air. Chen had seen his photograph in the base newsletter. She'd heard stories about him in the mess hall, but she'd never been this close to him before, never felt the weight of his presence. The way the air itself seemed to organize around him. She snapped to attention, her salute sharp and immediate. Good evening, sir. The Admiral returned her salute, then let his hand fall to his side. His eyes studied her face, her name tape, her posture. This wasn't a casual inspection. He was evaluating her. Petty Officer Chen, he said, pronouncing her name perfectly. Not Chan, like most people did. Chen, he'd practiced it. Yes, sir. From the Overwatch Tower, she could sense Davis watching, probably wondering what the hell an Admiral was doing at Gate 7 at 11:15 at night. Admiral Keller reached inside his coat, his movements deliberate and controlled. He withdrew a manila envelope, thick with contents, sealed with red wax that bore an official military stamp. He turned it so she could see the seal clearly under the harsh checkpoint lights. For your hands only, he said, extending the envelope toward her. Chen took it, feeling the weight of it in her palm. Not just the physical weight, but the gravity of whatever was inside. Orders that arrived at midnight from an admiral weren't routine paperwork. She examined the seal carefully, checking for tampering. The wax was intact, the impression clean. She held the envelope at an angle, checking for the watermark that indicated authenticity. Everything looked legitimate. The Admiral watched her inspection process with subtle approval. Take your time, Petty Officer. Do it right. She broke the seal carefully, unfolding the papers inside. Her eyes moved across the typewritten text, absorbing each word, each instruction, each implication. The orders were clear, direct, impossible to misunderstand. Initiate immediate security lockdown of Gate 7. Detain and inspect convoy currently staged at secondary holding. Suspected unauthorized equipment and falsified documentation. Execute bearer authority. Full discretion granted. At the bottom, Admiral Keller's signature carried the kind of weight that made other signatures look like practice. Chen read it twice, making sure she understood. Then she looked up at the Admiral, her expression unchanged. Professional. Sir, this gives me operational authority over the entire checkpoint. It does. And the convoy in secondary has been under investigation for 3 weeks. Tonight, we confirm what we already know. Chen's mind raced. The convoy she directed to secondary inspection based on a gut feeling wasn't just routine cargo. It was part of something bigger, something that had drawn the attention of an admiral. She'd been right to trust her instincts. She keyed her radio, her voice steady and calm. North Gate, this is Gate 7. Initiate Blackbird Protocol. Close lanes 2 and 4. Secondary holding is now under lockdown. No vehicles enter or exit without my direct authorization. There was a pause on the other end. The watch commander's voice came back confused. Gate 7. Say again. Blackbird Protocol? Chen glanced at the Admiral, who gave a subtle nod. Confirmed. Blackbird Protocol. Authorization level Alpha. Stand by for verification. She angled the envelope so Corporal Davis in the Overwatch tower could see the official seal through his scope. A moment later, his voice crackled over the radio. Overwatch confirmed seal authentication. Blackbird Protocol active. The watch commander's tone shifted immediately. Confusion replaced by sharp professionalism. Copy Blackbird. All lanes freezing. Nothing moves without Gate 7 authorization. Across the base, gates began closing. Traffic lights switched to red. The entire outer perimeter locked down in synchronized precision. Chen looked at the Admiral. Sir, permission to execute inspection? Granted, I'll observe. She nodded once, turned on her heel, and began walking toward the secondary inspection area. Behind her, the Admiral followed at a respectful distance, his presence transforming the routine checkpoint into a command center. In the holding area, the convoy driver was leaning against his truck, smoking a cigarette and talking on his phone. When he saw Chen approaching with the Admiral behind her, his expression changed. The cigarette fell from his fingers. Sir, I need you to step away from the vehicle, Chen said, her voice carrying authority she'd never had to use before. What's going on? I've been waiting here for 2 hours. Step away from the vehicle. Now. The driver complied. His hands raised slightly, his phone still clutched in one palm. Chen walked to the rear of the first truck and examined the seal on the cargo door. The tape looked correct, but when she ran her fingernail under the edge, it peeled away too easily, applied with heat, not field pressure. Someone had opened this cargo recently and resealed it to look untouched. She cut the securing bands and opened the container. Inside, fiber optic reels occupied the visible space, arranged neatly like props in a theater set. But underneath, barely visible unless you knew to look, were smaller crates constructed from different materials. Better materials, the kind used for equipment that needed extra protection. Chen pulled one of the crates forward and pried it open. Specialized antennas, power amplification units, signal interceptors, equipment designed to extend communications networks to unintended recipients, equipment that could listen to classified conversations, redirect data streams, compromise secure channels. This wasn't networking gear for the communications annex. This was espionage equipment. Chen's heart pounded, but her hands remained steady. She keyed her radio. Blackbird confirmed. Sparrow alert. Lock down the entire yard. Nobody moves. The perimeter gates closed with mechanical finality. Across the staging area, the truck that had been idling suddenly went silent, its engine cutting off like its driver had just realized the game was over. The convoy driver's face had gone pale. Look, there's been some kind of mistake. I just drive the trucks. I don't know what's in them. Chen ignored him, moving methodically through the remaining vehicles. The second truck contained more of the same. The third had falsified weight distribution that didn't match its manifest. Every vehicle in the convoy was carrying contraband. Admiral Keller approached, his footsteps measured and calm. He examined the opened crates, his expression revealing nothing. How did you know? He asked quietly. Chen straightened. The paperwork felt wrong, sir. The ink on the stamp was too light, and the weight didn't match the cargo type. I've processed enough networking equipment to know what it should weigh. The Admiral nodded slowly. You trusted your training? Yes, sir. Good. Within 30 minutes, the base security officer arrived with a full team. Military police secured the convoy. The drivers were separated and escorted to holding cells. The equipment was catalogued, photographed, and transferred to secure storage. Chen completed the chain of custody documentation, her signature carrying new weight now. She'd just stopped a major security breach, not through heroics or violence, but through attention to detail and the willingness to trust her instincts. The Admiral lingered as the scene was processed, observing but not interfering. When the immediate work was done, he approached Chen one final time. Petty Officer, your post extends far beyond this fence line. She met his eyes. Sir, tonight the fence line moved. The faintest smile crossed his face. Indeed it did. He returned to his staff car, and the vehicle disappeared into the fog, its taillights fading like punctuation marks ending an important sentence. By 0600 hours, the story had spread through the base like wildfire. Rumors competed with truth. Some said Chen had been secretly working undercover for months. Others claimed the Admiral had recruited her on the spot for a promotion. A few insisted she'd single-handedly taken down an entire spy ring. The truth was simpler and somehow more impressive. She'd just done her job, paid attention, trusted her training, and refused to let anything slip past her watch. At morning colors, the base looked unchanged to anyone who hadn't stood under those yellow lights. Flags snapped in the wind. Seagulls fought over breakfast scraps. Coffee tasted the same as it always did. But in the guard shack, a new line had been added to standing orders. Blackbird Protocol. Date-initiated security response. Administrative procedures may be adapted when operational demands require immediate action. Corporal Davis brought her extra coffee at shift change and set it down without a word. His two-finger salute tapped the side of his helmet with deeper meaning now. Respect between professionals who understood that vigilance was a shared responsibility. The convoy driver, in an interview room downtown, would later claim the paperwork had been the hardest part. It wasn't. At the commissary, a junior officer whispered to his friend that a gate guard had taken command from field grade officers. Someone who'd actually been there corrected the record. No one had taken command. Command had simply recognized competence when it saw it. 3 weeks later, new sentries went through training exercises that included a scenario called Northgate Fog Night. Chen's name wasn't mentioned in the presentation. Her decision-making process was. The Admiral never sent her a personal letter. He didn't need to. His administrative silence when others questioned her actions spoke louder than any commendation. That kind of silence was institutional protection. Chen kept the broken seal from that envelope in a book at home, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that paper remained just paper until human beings converted it into action. During the following weeks, contractors arrived with properly aged credentials and manifests that matched their actual cargo. The petty officer who'd offered her coffee returned, his previous flirtation replaced by genuine respect. "Evening, Petty Officer Chen," he said simply. "Evening," she replied. A junior sailor, fresh from basic training, asked her one night if gate duty was boring. Chen looked out at the fog rolling in from the harbor, at the headlights cutting through darkness, at the endless concrete that marked the boundary between safe and dangerous. "Sometimes," she said finally, "sometimes it's the kind of boring that keeps everyone safe." She checked her watch, adjusted her equipment, and stepped back under the yellow lights. The rumble strip waited. The concrete would meet her boots again in 10 minutes. The world continuously offered opportunities to demonstrate alertness, and she would be ready. If this story earned your respect, hit that like button. If you want more stories about quiet heroes doing extraordinary things, subscribe to Silent Warriors, and share this with someone who understands that real leadership doesn't need rank, it just needs courage. Because sometimes, the most important battles happen where nobody's watching. Until next time, stay vigilant.